That's the whole fucking point, is that we don't got time. Radchenko is fueling his birds, and why do you think he's doing that, huh? Why? Because you don't put a condom on unless you're gonna fuck.
Absolute perfection there. Absolute perfection. 10 to 10. Thank you. Thank you for joining us for another episode of OK Roundtable. Do I hear myself out of font? I better not. You better have your headset on.
No, I clap too.
Okay, that was
but it's just really hard to hear because NVIDIA RTX voice is just that good.
It is that good. Unless you're a Cricket that we learned very recently. Someone else in another Discord has a Cricket problem, and so like every time they talk and their mic opens up, all you hear is it's like, oh no. But anyway, welcome to another episode of OK Roundtable. We're going to talk about Crimson Tide today. I am joined today, as usual, by Mort. I can point in the right direction. And today, cameraless, but still with a bit of a voice, is Fought.
Hello.
So I'm subjecting everybody to my Tony Scott obsession, which started again when I was 5 by having Top Gun be my favorite movie. And Crimson Tide, of course, like Tony Scott collaborated with Denzel Washington, I think the most out of any of the big actors that he's worked with.
Oh yeah, just looking at this list, yeah.
Oh yeah, just look at Tony Scott films, and you're like, oh yeah, that is like Man on Fire. Yeah, no, Unstoppable. Yeah, Deja Vu. Yeah, like holy crap, this guy worked with Denzel Washington a lot. He worked with him in this movie, Crimson Tide, and said, I want to work with a lot. Like, you are nailing it.
To be fair, Denzel fucking nails it. The acting in this is superb. Like, all around. I don't think anybody doesn't do a great job. But Denzel and Hackman specifically are just putting on a fucking class for us.
This movie, okay, so to get it out of the way, like, out of 10, what do you thought? What do you think of this movie?
2. No, 9. Easy
9. All right. Fought?
7.
7? Okay, that's respectable. Like I'm kind of like 8.5 to 9 range for me, because I think that something about military dramas,
perfect, but it's really close. It's really close. I think the first act takes a little while to get going, but once we're actually in the conflict on the boat, like. Man, it just starts going, and you were just wrapped from that point on. At least I was. I couldn't do anything else but just sit there and watch. It was great.
I mean, if there's anything that Tony Scott can do, it's compel you with a bit of thriller and some drama. What's up, Zelius? Yeah, we're talking about Crimson Tide. I don't know if you remember that movie. Great movie with Gene Hackman and Denzel Washington. The movie really like kicks off because it's like, when did this movie come out? 91. It's 95. Okay, so it kind of kicks off with like, this is just a few years out of the Cold War, so like the USSR has collapsed, so there's a lot of tension still there about like what could happen like in the 90s, but like overall everyone's pretty chill, but the threat of nuclear war is still there, so it's easy tension that you can just use to wrap up. They're like, oh damn, rebels have defected in Russia and they've taken over nukes. Like immediately, boom, stakes. Like, what the stakes are in this movie. Potential nuclear war. And it's like, oh, and there's something that about Tony Scott that he just says, yes, we're gonna have drama here. And this is the tension. And it's the reason why when he basically remade Top Gun in his film Days of Thunder. Because Days of Thunder, Days of Thunder was Top Gun with NASCAR vehicles.
Yes.
And like the stakes are not as high because it's fucking NASCAR. It's not it's not fucking war. Like, it's not potential war starting. It's like the tension's not there.
This is a really good job of weaving together a bunch of different specific war concepts that are all really kind of terrifying on their own. I think submarine movies in general are fantastic because there's some sort of primal fear that we have of being in a small contained area in a place where if it is exposed, you'll die. Whether that be a submarine or space or whatever the case may be, there's something primal about knowing that there's just a thin wall of metal separating you and instant death.
There's a great way that if I want to talk about the camera work, like besides some of the cool shots where they had to make they angled it correctly to make sure like when they're diving, when they're going up, like when they're turning, like everyone is like there's a bit of there's motion in the camera that kind of works with it. It levels out. It'll do Dutch angles at the right angle to make sure that you know that things are off kilter. But what is interesting in the way that this movie uses extras is to show how many people it takes to run everything. Like you need a ton of people and a ton of personnel doing little things, and they show the military like redundancy of everyone repeating orders, making sure that things are like, you know, carried out in a certain way. But it adds to that that fear when everyone's like, oh God, but your section is this section. Like you're focused on this one thing. Who's controlling the ship? Again, not your job. That's not what you're focused on. Like they're down here doing this, and like it really kind of, you know, sells you on when things are getting foobar, the actual fear behind it. It's actually really cool. But you wanted to talk about music, and that really perked my interest.
I did. You know, this is Hans Zimmer, obviously.
Right.
And you know, as you're listening to this, I don't know about you, but it kind of felt familiar to me. I don't know if it did or not to you. He did win a Grammy for his work on Crimson Tide.
Right.
But if you listen to the main theme, which is, you know, appropriately titled Roll Tide, it's a Pirates of the Caribbean song. Like, he clearly was like, damn, I really hit it out of the park last time I did a boat song. Let me just kind of throw some fiddle on top, and we'll just call it Pirates, because, you know, same thing. Seriously, go listen to He's a Pirate. If you're listening to us right now, don't yet, I guess, but listen to the song He's a Pirate from the Pirates of the Caribbean, and then listen to Roll Tide, and just tell me that it wasn't kind of, you know, maybe a little lazy.
I mean,
which is fair. He's done so many movies.
That's interesting. I should definitely listen to that. Like I want to play it right now, but then, you know, that's the potential for copyright.
I didn't even know Hans Zimmer's did Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Did he?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And Hans Zimmer was actually kind of it's interesting because it's definitely trying to ape off of Gladiator, which I think was also interesting. Like it's trying to ape off the way that let's see what.
Oh yeah, he did.
Barbecue, very nice. But yeah, it just has that vibe of like Gladiator, but like let's have big epic sounds and dun 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 dun. But yeah, I don't know with this movie. It's.
Oh, dude.
I guess to go over the plot of the movie, right? So, a rebel group in Russia has defected, which is about 60,000 men, an entire battalion defected against the Russian government. They hijacked a submarine base that had 4 subs, and they hijacked a nuclear site that had like 25 nukes or something, like 10, like some number of nukes. And so this submarine called the Alabama
USS Alabama
is deployed in order to position itself for a potential preemptive strike if it is shown that the nukes are about to get fired. So the tension hits because they get an emergency action message to say fire the nukes, and everyone's like, oh shit. And then they start finding a rebel sub, and as they're getting another emergency action message, but the message gets cut off partway through, and now they have no idea what's happening. And the last orders they were given was to fire off nukes. Then their communication gets cut off, and it's like, did we get the message? So now the central conflict is, what was the second message?
Because it's definitely about this. It starts off saying, nuclear action or whatever. It was obviously a continuation or a
retraction. Yeah.
Previous order. There's only two options. It's either stop
or even change targets. Like it could be changed coordinates of where they're
so. Yeah. But generally speaking, it's one of two general options based off what we're informed of so far.
Like that was one of the things that Denzel said. He's like, what did they change the target package? Like, what did they change? Like where we're hitting? Like that could be it. It could be fire as is, change your target, or don't fire at all. Like we don't know, so we got to wait for that. And that's exactly what the entire tension of the movie sets off is a disagreement of what to do next. And it's weird how much a movie that really jams pack as much naval procedure into it as possible. And like, I wonder if that was maybe a slight criticism of the way that they did Top Gun. Because I know that like with Top Gun, Tony Scott opted to do a sports movie style, a filming of the movie. Like that's why they have a locker room scene. They're like, I have these hot looking dudes. Of course I'm gonna have them with their shirts off. Like these are young, sexy actors.
It's a sports movie beat for beat.
It's a sports movie. Like they even say,
with you.
What happens after the first?
They play volleyball.
Yeah, they also play beach volleyball,
and it's hot
and it's sexy.
It's hot volleyball.
The thing though, because the thing that is kind of funny is like after the first like flyby, like it's the first mission. They quote unquote win, but they go below the hard deck, whatever the fuck. But they do a flyby of the tower and then get in trouble. And then that same night, at least what it seems like, because they don't indicate any passing of time. And he's just kind of like, I don't know, Mav. I got a family to think about. I just hope we graduate. And I'm just all like, why do you say it like that? That's 100% from sports movies. Like, right. It's like the high school quarterback being like, oh man, I shouldn't have done that. It was really dangerous for the running back. Man, I just hope we can graduate, man. Like we're rebels.
So I have a different theory maybe on what that's
about the procedure stuff.
Yeah,
okay.
I think it might be partially like a tongue-in-cheek, or at least like a drawing attention to it kind of way.
Okay.
Because it is a slight problem, and it's something that's had. I mean, we have come very close to mutually assured destruction a couple of times. I mean, like close, and it's just one person being like, "Hold off," that saved us from all ending up in a real life version of this. So obviously, that's kind of what it's playing off of. Surely it directly mentions Cuban Missile Crisis. But like, lost it.
Lost your train of thought there?
Yep, I did.
Okay, well,
tell me what I was saying.
You said it's on purpose to do the redundancy thing?
Yeah, so my understanding about how this movie came about is that the producers or whatever, like the executives, did a ride along with the Florida, and they were talking with the Navy because they had this idea to do like war games on a boat kind of thing, where a computer decides to start launching missiles, and that's what they have to fight against is, the computer starting World War III.
Oh, I was thinking more like the Kelsey Grammer War Games, and I was all like, "That's another sub movie, right?" Like,
not that one. But like that's apparently what it was, and the Navy was like, "That can't happen." Like, you see how many redundancies are here? Like, it takes 20 dudes all saying the same shit 15 times just for us to get the keys to do this thing. And so, like, I think they put it in there, maybe verbatim or maybe not. I don't know. They were apparently able to like witness the actual procedures.
I'm sure they witnessed some drills.
It seems kind of tongue-in-cheek about that. Like, yeah, it takes 20 guys to do it, but it still just takes one fucking crazy dude to make this shit all go wild. I mean,
well, I wonder, because again, that was one of the things that they did a lot of research on. Like, it wasn't until Kubrick and Vanilla Sky that Top Gun had the most expensive shot in a movie ever, because he wanted the sun's angle to be a certain way, because they were on a real aircraft carrier, right? And so he wanted the sun to look a certain way in a certain camera shot. So he basically paid like so many thousands upon thousands of dollars for the fuel to turn the aircraft carrier a certain way so he can get the angle he wanted, and then for them to turn back. Like, that's how expensive that shot was. It held the record for the most expensive shot in cinema. And I'm wondering if, like, they spent a lot of time with sub people to say, like, hey, what would be a realistic scenario where shit would go wrong? It's like, okay, well, this would have to go out, this would have to go out, like, and this would have to go out. Like, here are the ways that things would have to go wrong in order for it to make it believable. Because it's kind of,
they did it.
Like, with Top Gun, one of the things, like, okay, what do we do to add, drama and stakes? Like, again, spoiler alert, when Goose dies, like, one of the things that they were saying, I know, but one of the things they were saying was, how do we get someone to probably die from that? And they're like, oh, a flat spin. And like, then the stunt guy showed them what a flat spin was and then died doing it. Like, and they were just kind of like, well, I guess that's the way to do it then. I guess if you were going to get someone to die, there you go.
My boss, who's a former Navy pilot, has talked about flat spins before, and it's not a fun conversation.
It doesn't seem like a ton of fun. And like, I think that movie is the reason why anytime that I hear like distressed aircraft audio, like, I immediately get like 10 out of 10 emotion in an emotional state.
Do not like.
Like, where he's just all like, punch us out, eject. It's just panic, and like, that's it. Like, all the training is out the window. It's just panic, and it's like, damn,
you have to.
We saw it together.
Oh my god!
Oh,
it's got
my
the
god.
hot boys and just jeans and no shirt playing volleyball. Come on.
Oh my god!
Yeah, even I've seen it.
You saw. We all saw it together. I subjected it to all of you.
It's true.
Playing with the boys.
The difference, though, is that Top Gun was made with cooperation from the U.S. military, and Crimson Tide was not.
Was it not?
Once they came back with the mutiny concept, the Navy was like, no, fuck off. Here's the coolest story about this whole fucking movie. I love the story. So they didn't get permission to go aboard or do anything, and they needed footage of a submarine, for their submarine movie. So they went and researched whether it was legal or not to film naval ships, which it turns out, thanks to the First Amendment, it is perfectly legal to film naval ships as long as they're in open waters. So they went to a naval base and set up cameras and got boats and helicopters ready and chased after the first sub that left so they could film it. And it just so happened to be the USS Alabama.
Shut up. That is amazing.
There you go.
That is amazing.
Good job.
Yeah, just Providence that way. But yeah, they were not okay with the plot line, so they did not cooperate.
That makes a lot of sense, especially because, like, it's one of those things like, how would something happen? Oh, like this. Like, okay, so what if you make a movie where that happens? And they're like, no. Like, no, we can't have a literal mutiny in a nuclear. It makes us look incompetent.
Yeah, that's not gonna work. It's not gonna work for us. Yeah,
but I mean that's where I think it has the idea that it's trying to be. I guess once again we are talking about an old movie, but spoilers anyway. One of the things that I think the film tries to do, I don't know if it does it well. I think you can tell me if you think it did it well or not. One of the things it does, it tries to leave like an ambiguous both sides were right kind of thing, where it's like, because the right answer is you go with orders on hand, but like the XO is also right.
One case where you were getting orders but have not received them fully, then there is a bit of a gray area. It's just enough for there to be a conflict. I actually think they do a really good job of making both sides a perspective you can at least understand.
There's a logic through line between both of them. It's like
neither one of them is truly wrong, neither one is truly right. They both have good points, and they need to work together.
We were given orders to fire nukes. And they said it. You know how many fucking checks and balances we get to even get to that point? Like, he confirmed it, and it's like, yes, but we could have gotten new orders and we don't know. And like his plea to Weps, I think was one of those great moments in the film. Because again, this is also one of those movies where you're like, holy crap, there's a lot of actors that are like that were like who were like nobody's kind of people.
Brian Philippe for like 2 frames. He's on screen for 3 fucking seconds.
But you have Viggo Mortensen, and you're just
Viggo Mortensen's in there. Like Steve Zahn's in there briefly.
It's so weird. James Gandolfini, pre Sopranos, right? Like
young Gandolfini just comes across to me as a Favreau. Like it's basically the same kind of character.
I hate James Gandolfini's character. I hate from the get-go.
Complete.
I just hate that motherfucker. Yeah. Like, especially since
I do think it's funny that they're talking about submarine movies. So that has to be a Quentin Tarantino edition as well.
Yeah, if you telling me that, it's kind of like, okay, so you have the Silver Surfer conversation, you have the movie conversation. The one that's definitely not a Tarantino section was the philosophical part. Where they were like, well, what do you think the enemy is? The enemy is war itself. Like, it's like, ooh. But again, it's one of those things where it's a great...
That sounds like some lefty pinko communist bullshit.
Oh, what are you, communist? You think we shouldn't have dropped the bombs on Japan?
Actually, Gandolfini, I don't think we should have dropped the bombs on Japan. Hot take. It wasn't necessary. It was just kind of a way of showing off so that we could win the war before Russia did. Hooray!
It was a way to stave off Russia from taking over Japan.
Yeah,
like
great.
Cool, you did it. You wanted a gigantic show of force, but like, whatever. But I think that it was an interesting little moment in the film where they talk about the difference between the old guard and like what new. Like they sent Denzel's character to Harvard to sit there like they want you to know why. Like they just taught me to push the button. They're training you to know why. Like, and that adds an extra layer of responsibility and morality behind sending nukes. Like that's kind of a whole different mindset. And I think of things like Vietnam, like I can't imagine now using napalm, for example, but like Vietnam was all about it and they just did not give a shit. They just fucking burn it down. And then now it's kind of like, how about we don't do that? Maybe, possibly, if we can help it. But it's just there's a lot of questions that they asked in the movie, because like his answer, his response to Weps, really explained it. He's like, if you fire that now, we're firing blind and crippled. There are other ships, because again, they're all about redundancy. The Alabama can't be the only one there ready to fire nukes. So like, one would assume that there's got to be other people out there. So like, their ship is just not equipped to be the ones to do it. Period. They're blind and crippled. You are not at full capacity. Like, you have no communications. Like, but yes, you have the previous orders, but like, maybe you shouldn't. And then of course, Gene Hackman, brilliant, absolutely brilliant performance. Holy shit. Like the first time right before the XO release of Command, where he's like, I've made a decision, I want you to shut the fuck up. And I was just like, oh damn, Hackman. Oh, Hackman.
Snaps. Just snaps. Again, those two actors specifically, Denzel and just, I mean, going toe to toe this whole movie, it's incredible. It's incredible.
Again, especially since they give them a proper a logical through line behind their actions.
Yes. Like
the entire time you're like, either side could be right. And like the fact that, like, again, at the end when they're sitting there and he goes, you have 3 minutes. Like, and they're fixing the radio, you have 3 minutes. And he's like, I hope you're right. And it's like, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. God help us all, because that means we're at war. And I'm like, oh,
And I think that little acquiescence by the captain, okay, fine, I'll give you 3 minutes. You got the thing going. We'll make it happen. I think that's actually a really subtle take on it that not a lot of directors would have done. It's really easy to just make the bad guy cartoonishly bad.
It could have ended like, I'm gonna point out Star Trek. All right, I'm gonna go on a weird okay, semi Mike Slow class of Star Trek rant. All right,
I'm here for it.
So Star Trek has a lot of very tense and very dramatic and action packed scenes that don't have anything to do with like punching and fighting and like the tension is coming from like you're waiting on a ticking clock and like so again you think about that the one episode where they get taken prisoner, the dramatic scene is them walking from one place to the other, from 10 forward into I think one of the docking bays. Like that's the tense scene. They're not fighting. It's not action. They're fighting. Aim. Poo, 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 poo. The way that they do in fucking Star Trek Nemesis. Like what happens? Riker just fights a fucking alien in a hallway for some fucking reason. It's like that's not tension and action the same way. That's not action the way that Star Trek is intended to be fucking action packed. Like it's not fucking Star Wars. It's not that kind of action. So in this movie, you're right. A lesser director would have been like, let's have them have a fucking all-out fist fight until the message shows up. Like no, they're fighting. No, they sit there quietly and they have a conversation. And the tension is like, will the radio get fixed in time? And if it does, what does the message say? Who's right? Which side comes out like in the most correct light possible? And they sit there and talk about fucking horses. Like it's such a like tense moment where they're not, it's not action man punching other action man. Like it's sitting there just two people who think that they are fucking right and need to be listened to, taking the time to sit there and be like, let's see who's right. Let's see who's right. And they're like, those Leopard stallions, like you seen them? They're all white from Portugal. And he's like, they're from Spain.
All white.
They're born black.
Actually, they're black when they start. Like okay, thinly veiled racial metaphor there. Got it.
Got it.
Because it's the Alabama. Okay, okay, I get it.
Right, so I wasn't the only one who felt like that.
No, it's definitely
definitely
okay.
Yeah, he was all like, they're all white. But I think it was an interesting thing where he was like, you can get a horse to do whatever the fuck you want. We stuff enough electricity up their ass. And I'm just like, and that's his philosophy on how he treats his crew.
That is the military's philosophy. Is if you just beat people long enough, they will eventually do what you want.
But again, that was one of the good moments is after that fight breaks out, the Silver Surfer fight, is Denzel's character goes up to the captain and is like, hey, I just witnessed a fight. Like, it's no big deal. Like, it's taken care of. But, like, I think that people are on edge because, like, they just got told that it's possible the nukes are imminent, right? They haven't been told they're feeling yet, but that it's possible and be on the extreme ready. And he's like, I think they're on edge. And then he fucking just, like, says, like, get your ass in gear, motherfuckers. Like, war is imminent.
If you're not feeling good, go ahead and hop off the boat. Yeah, there's definitely a changing of the guard kind of storyline in there too, with, you know, the old hard nose leaving for the younger, actually being a little bit more intuitive with how they try to approach people. Yeah, there's definitely that part of it too. Again, the final scene too of them not hating each other, not combative, just acknowledging like, oh shit, we came out ahead on this one.
Luckily, we came out ahead. Like,
yeah, we made it to this one okay, oddly enough.
I still think that the ending scene is a very interesting way to end the movie.
The ending scene almost seems like a rewrite to me.
Well, no, because I think that there's definitely the hearing part, right? Where it's weird. We don't hear what he said or anything, but like it ends in a recommendation to get him his own command. But then it also ends where it's just kind of like, you were both right, but you were both like you both did it in the worst possible way because you guys didn't talk to each other.
Pretty wrong in your approach of trying to be right.
Like it was a mutiny and it was a breakdown in the system. And we're gonna be talking about this forever.
Ultimately, you both wanted to follow orders. The problem is that in the breakdown of that happening, y'all pointed guns.
Yeah,
like when you had the keys to the nuke.
Yeah, like the captain was like, "I'm gonna shoot this guy if you don't like launch the nuke.
If you don't open the
fucking
I'm just locker."
Like, okay. I'm like,
so
okay, good thing he didn't shoot him.
Yeah. Maybe you should be relieved of command if you're threatening to kill innocent bystanders to try and force other innocent bystanders
to force a nuke launch.
Like, to force a nuclear holocaust, as he kept saying.
He does. He doesn't say Holocaust. He says Holocaust.
Why?
Holocaust.
Was that how it was pronounced in 95? I don't know.
Just in 95. Hang on. There is a
Holocaust.
Is there another way to pronounce
Holocaust?
Yeah, I'm sure Holocaust is fine. It's just kind of abrupt. Like, I've never heard anybody pronounce it that way.
I mean, I've heard it, but
I've never heard anyone say Holocaust. I've always been Holocaust.
But it's usually in like a mocking manner.
Who the fuck mocks with the word Holocaust? God damn.
Plenty of politicians from my neck of the woods.
True. Alabama.
If you, I don't know, like if you search in like the deepest parts of the internet too, it's very bad.
I avoid those parts of the internet.
From Alabama? Have we talked about that?
Roll Tide.
Have we talked about the fact that I've actually been on the USS Alabama?
Nice.
Oh no.
Not this one though. The battleship USS Alabama. It's out of service.
Is it a museum?
Ship. Yeah.
Dude, so is the Lexington. And like that's again, I'm from Corpus, so like the Lexington's parked here. Yeah, in the bay, right? And so you just kind of we would go because like the Lexington was called the Blue Ghost because like, it got shot down and kept coming back. Like and the reason why is they kept on fucking like patching it up and then sending it back out. Like you're like fucking bubble gum and cardboard, whatever the fuck. We'll close this hole. Let's fucking go. And yeah, like it's cool. Those museum ships are so fucking cool. I want next time I go to San Diego, I kind of want to go to the Midway. I think that's what the one is over there.
I was supposed to fake propose to my wife on the Midway. That was, yeah, that's how it was supposed to go down. My company was having their convention in San Diego, and we were doing a party thing at sunset on the Midway, and that was going to be the thing, because we were going to pretend that's when we were getting engaged, having already been married for like 5 months.
I mean,
that's how I do things.
If it gets you the gifts and the congratulations, I would do it.
That's what I want is the fucking gifts.
Here's my registry, motherfuckers.
we're gonna do it upright if we can ever get out of this fucking pandemic, because I do want the gifts. I have a pretty well-stocked kitchen, but man, I need some more shit. Like, let's not front.
It's kind of interesting because like I would love to traverse the ship because I think that they had to have shot in either they created that set or they had to shoot in a battleship, and just like because it's the same design of the hallways and the way that they everything's laid out.
Filmed on a museum ship too.
Right, that's my only thought. Right, is that they
actually thought it was really interesting. The cinematography on this, rather than using the cramped space to try and shove a camera in, sometimes it does the like through the crawl space or through the stairs or whatever look.
Oh, through the grate on the floor and stuff like that?
I think that's such a cool way of making it feel like it's cramped while also giving lots of depth to the shot. It doesn't feel like we're super cramped, but you still definitely get the impression that, oh, there's not a lot of room on this thing.
Well, because I remember in the climax where Denzel, the XO is going to take back over the control room. He's literally on a level above them and sees them like leave and then post guards. He's like, oh, then we got to use the crawl space. And they use the crawl space to get out and then take over the ship, take the missile. I was like, oh, like that's a clever use of like space because like they are layered on top of each other. Like you aren't looking necessarily like up, like you're looking at with someone coming straight at you. Like it's kind of, again, Tony Scott is just brilliant when it comes to this kind of thing. Maybe not exactly Days of Thunder, but again, I that's just a movie where I'm like, I've seen this already way too much. It's just Top Gun with cars. Like, why is this happening? I think that it's an interesting movie for a war movie because of the way that it ends, the climax not being this ultra action packed, like it's just tension gets ratcheted up, and then like the release is it's an unconditional surrender, do not fire, and that's it. Like it doesn't end in like the sub battle happened, like that was the middle action that almost cripples the ship completely. But it's not the climax. Like that would be the climax of a cheaper, shittier movie.
Sure.
Or we have to get the nukes out, but we gotta take out the sub first. Bang, bang, yeehaw, motherfucker.
I mean, made 5 years prior to this, Hunt for an October does kind of end on a dramatic sub combat thing. Which again, just to throw this out there, there's only ever been one sub to sub warfare incident ever. It's not a thing that happens. It's really hard to sink a submarine with a submarine. Not a thing you can just like easily do. So like it just doesn't happen much.
And for the reasons they show in the movie. Yeah. Where like you go into like you detect someone else, you go into ultra silent, you move slow, and then like eventually you guys just pass each other. Literally, yeah. Like, oh shit, there's another person. And both go silent, blah blah, and they just go. And you go until you put enough distance between you and the other person that you're just kind of like, you can maybe reach communication depth and report, hey, submarines sighted in this general area, and that's it. That's the best you're gonna do. Is you're gonna report the general area of where you last saw a potential enemy sub. There is no like, we're dog fighting underwater.
No, you get planes in with depth charges, or you get a ship in with depth charges, but like you don't take down submarines with a submarine. They're not built for that. Like in theory, there are anti-submarine subs out there, but like it just doesn't happen in the real world.
It's not practical. Like subs are scary preemptive strike machines. They are espionage machines. But they are not they're like submarine hunters. Yeah, they are not submarine hunters. What's really
scary about them is that they can just pop up anywhere and rain devastation, but they can't take out another sub very easily.
Yeah, like it's one of those things where if they wanted to, it's kind of one of those things where they're that's why it's scary to be like they could be off the coast. But that's why you always have people like, you have naval patrols out on the coast for this or that with sonar and yada yada yada. You do your best to try to stop that, but you're not like, oh man, a submarine's fighting another submarine, watch out. Like, no, it's probably not a thing to really worry about too much.
Right.
But again, that wasn't the climax. Like a different movie would definitely have that be the climax. We have to get the message out, but we got to stop this sub. Like the sub was its own problem that they had to take care of. And in the middle of that was a tension of the relieving of the captain. It's like, and that's what triggers the next set of problems. The sub's gone, but now it's like we still don't have communications. Oh shit! Like it's such a good movie in terms of, like having those small twists and turns. Because you think that Weps wouldn't go with it at first, right? You think that he's gonna be like, no, of course not. But then he's like, fine.
Yeah, you're devastated by him giving. Like, really, dude? This is your friend. Like, your family's hanging out.
Right. The opening scene is their family's hanging out at a birthday party for the kid, for Denzel Washington's kid.
And again, I think that is kind of a slow start, but I think it's worth having. Also, I forgot to mention this before, but I love when old war movies start with like a whole like history lesson on what's going on, like it's a whole newsreel or something. Like I just love being given that much context in a movie. It's kind of like the Star Wars opening crawl, like tell me what's going on before we get here. I would like to know. Yeah, and I like that.
I mean, speaking of scenes that I like, right? The addressing of the crew before entering, I think, is interesting because it shows like a cohesiveness of like what the sub has to be, and it kind of is a what is it, foreshadowing for the breakdown of the cohesiveness, like where he's all like, Mr. Cobb, like, do you know the name of this ship? Yes, sir. Like, what is it, sir? Alabama, sir. It's like, why is it named that? Like, for the proud people of Alabama. Those are damn fine people. Damn fine, sir. And he was all like, they're like, Alabama, roll tide. And the entire crew, roll tide.
Roll tide. Yeah.
But it shows like group cohesiveness. And then it's just like whenever things start getting real, it's like the fight over bullshit Silver Surfer comics. And then it's like, there's clearly a beginning of the breakdown of the mesh of the internal unit.
It seems almost like maybe the mesh isn't as strong as the captain thinks, because you're led to believe at first that the previous XO is just not there. He's had appendicitis or whatever. But then when you actually get him on the ship with the other regs, they start talking like he's just burning through XOs. Like, oh, what happened the last one? Oh, they called it appendicitis. Like, it seems like he's just going through them as quickly as he can, and probably because of this very same conflict. It's probably just that it's never been about something quite as big. Nobody's really stood up to him before. But in this one instance, it's a place where the XO does what the XO is supposed to do. It's supposed to be that checks and balance. You you need to have more than one person deciding to nuke somebody. You just do.
Well, I think that scene post briefing room, I think, was really great because like he's introducing himself to all the other chiefs, and he said he takes that dog everywhere with him. It's like, yeah, and they let him get away with it too. Probably because he's the only skipper who's ever seen combat, and it's all like,
does seem to be that.
Like, oh yeah, he did this in '89, this and that. Oh, and then like what was it, 8 or 9 XOs in '95 or '94, whatever the fuck, or whatever they said. Like, yeah, what was the last one? What did he say? Appendicitis. Like, clearly they think it's bullshit too.
Right.
Like they think the entire excuse about why there's a new XO is bullshit. But it's kind of an interesting look because he says one thing. He goes, I don't want kiss asses. I don't want, yes men around me. If you have a disagreement with me, I'm fine with that. Like, take it to me in private, but like, and if privacy doesn't exist, bite your fucking tongue. Which, like, okay, I understand, especially in the heat of battle, heat of the moment, like, you got to show a little bit of restraint. But it was interesting that as soon as there was that pushback of like proper procedure, he told him to shut the fuck up. So like clearly he's being a fucking hypocrite. He does want a yes man. He does want someone to just sit there and kiss his ass and to give him what he wants. I think in the moment, yes. In the moment, of course he does. Because like
there's definitely a reading from this that's him being not just grateful, but truly glad that his XO stood up to him and that he didn't allow him to actually follow through with it. Obviously, it's the wrong answer. Launching nukes in that moment is the wrong answer. We do know that unequivocally from the end of the movie. And I think having gotten to that point, I think to some degree, he's very grateful that somebody stood up. In my reading of it, I've always
at what point is he grateful though? After
I've always assumed that
after being proven wrong?
As soon as it's known that they don't need to launch the nukes, he's immediately
yes. There, I'm talking about the first time he disagrees.
I know, and I don't know. I don't know about that one or not, but my reading of it is he's actually grateful for somebody who stands up to him, even though it's not what he wants as a person. And so my reading of that scene is that he doesn't mean that. He really does want somebody to stand up to him. He just wants it to be worthwhile. And I think this is the kind of the example of what he would say is the kind of place where somebody does need to stand up. You know what I mean? Like, at no other point should you ever question me, except in case I'm about to nuke a country that we're semi-friendly with, and they're not going to nuke us back otherwise. Like, that's the time you really do need to stand up and say, Captain, sorry, no. Never any other time, though. Just this time.
No, because like I said, it was again, when he stands up to him, like, again, he gets a little annoyed whenever he's upset about the missile drill. And so he pulls him aside and talks to him. He's like, hey, so like, what are your thoughts? You think I'm just a fucking cowboy going yeehaw? And he's like, no, but like, I wouldn't have done that. And they're like, well, yeah, I get that you wouldn't have, but like, here's the reason why I would do it. Cause like your shit's not going to be perfect. Shit could pop off at any time. Like, so yeah, get it done. So like, there's a bit of understanding. It's like, I'm not doing it for no reason. Like, I'm not doing it to be cruel. I was doing it to make sure that people understand that in a confusing time, you still got to be ready.
And I really do understand running a drill in a confusing time. It's callous while somebody's dying to run the drill.
He didn't know someone was dying yet.
I know. He stopped it immediately once he knew somebody was dying. Like, that's what leads me to believe that he had good intentions there. He really was just trying to test them at a time when it was chaotic.
It's why I like the moral ambiguity of this movie, where it has this kind of like, both of them are technically right. But like, I think that at that moment, whenever he stands up to him and be like, hey, sir, I think we need to reconfirm this message. Like, he tells him to shut the fuck up and then tries to replace him. And that's where the entire conflict of orders and chain of command and all that stuff kind of breaks down. Is Cobb knows that what the captain was doing was improper and out of line. So of course, yeah, put him away, because what you did was wrong. Like, I don't like you motherfucker, but you're right. Like, by the book, you were right. And it's kind of like, there it is. Because like, but at the same time, what is the complaint between Zimitz and like all the rest of them is, by the book, you follow the orders in hand. Like, without contravening orders, you follow the orders in hand. Like, I understand that too. But like, I really feel like he wanted to kiss ass at that moment. Like, he got proven wrong in the end, and I think at that moment he was like, "Oh shit, I'm wrong." Like, and it was like, and what did he say? He has the con, and he leaves. He gives them control of the ship and just fucking leaves. And like, there is a moment of gratefulness and this and that, but it was clear that like, the old ways of just fuck it, push the button just wasn't gonna cut it. Like, and it kind of, again, just leaves that last part where it's like, he doesn't admit that he was wrong, because he still believes what he did was right. And I think that's what adds this cool ending to it, where he was like, you were right. And he was like, is that so, sir? And he's just like, They are from Spain. Like, those horses are from Spain. And I'm like, Gene Hackman.
Gene Hackman's so good.
You fucking got me again.
So good. So like, so this is based off of a specific instance of the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Okay.
And yeah, I maybe that's part of what my reading is on this, but in that instance, a Russian sub in the Caribbean was being attacked by American forces and did not have contact with Moscow. So rather than try and wait to see if they should launch an all-out nuclear attack on the United States, they decided amongst themselves. And typically on Russian or Soviet subs at this point, captain and political officer have to agree. That's the XO equivalent. If they both agree, nukes launch. In this one case, there was a third person on board who had to be consulted because he happened to be the admiral of the entire fleet, even though he was second in command on the boat, because that's how things work, I guess.
Well, that makes sense. That makes sense. That
he refused. And because Vasily Arkhipov refused, we are all still here. And what's interesting is that particular Soviet officer was also on board the K-19, as we all know, with the Widowmaker during the potential nuclear meltdown. And you just have to wonder, like, if anybody other than somebody who's seen the raw devastation of what nuclear power can do up front is in that position, we legitimately might not be here. Mad may have happened that day. Like, there's almost a more interesting movie here to tell about the real stories that happened, because there's a direct line from one to the other. But yeah, I mean, I think this reveals part of the problem with that type of setup too, is that, yeah, that all works fine as long as the captain's willing to hear no and then stand down. And unfortunately, in this case, the captain wasn't willing to stand down and acquiesce to the no. And because of how people are, and because of how we form relationships, people wanted to believe him because he's the captain. It's more than just the role itself. They wanted to believe him. And on the other side, we have officers that don't agree with our XO, but are doing what he's saying because he's followed the proper procedure. Like, there's a lot of intricacy in the story, but it boils down to that chain of command isn't good. It's not a good option for us. And they directly mention in the closing crawl that, that's not how nuclear launches are authorized anymore. No boat captain can launch one on his own. And despite the president we've had recently being just as insane as this particular boat captain, if not worse, I still think it's better to have somebody slightly higher up in the chain of command required to be the one to actually authorize it. I think it's harder to get to that point than it is to get to that point with a boat captain.
Right, because like, and it's kind of like it and what Webs says it pretty clearly, where he's like, I'd rather go down than get this one wrong. Like, right. This order isn't just like, hey,
it's bigger than the individual people on this boat.
Yeah, launching nukes as a decision is bigger than anything else. Like, we're launching nukes towards another country. The decision should be weighed heavily. And again, that's why, again, I love the officer mess scene where they talk about dropping nukes. Like, what does that, Webb said it, what does it say about us as we're the only ones who's ever dropped nukes on another country? That makes us a prime target.
Good question.
It's like, I wonder what that does make us. Like, that makes us the people that did it. That's it. It really, at the end of the day, it makes us the people that did it.
It reminds me of either the Dark Knight Rises, where talking about how, okay, you put on a mask, they put on a mask. You put on bulletproof armor, they buy armor-piercing rounds. Like, and there's an escalation. And we escalated. We as a country escalated warfare to a point it had never been taken to. Devastation at a level that's not even comprehensible in most people's minds. We did put a target on our backs. That's what you do when you carry around a big stick like that, then actually fucking use it. We should not have dropped a bomb at me. Here.
I mean, yeah, and that's it's one of those things that's been debated like up and down, where like, should we have done it? It's kind of like, well, with everything that came out, a lot of things that got declassified. It's kind of like, at the end of the day, we didn't need to. Like, we really didn't. And even if we did drop one, we didn't need to drop the second. Like, that's the part that also kind of like blows my mind. Like, we dropped one, like that could have been it, but they decided to drop a second the next day as well. And it's like, that seems like you were wanting to more than was necessary anyway.
Seems like you didn't really give them time to even surrender.
To process what the fuck just happened to them. Like, how do you process that? Like, it would be absolutely, I mean, I don't know. It's just, it's a thing where it creates the tension in the movie very well. Because they're setting up the, like, how dangerous the use of nukes are, what it means to be there to first strike. Because again, that's what they were saying, is that we're there to first strike. So like us launching,
it coalesces the entire conflict of what the Cold War was into a 2-hour movie. I mean, it does a pretty good job of that. Obviously, there's a lot of nukes there, but like, that's kind of the thought, is that both sides are sitting there thinking, if we don't act first, they are. And that's what mutually assured destruction is. It's that knowledge that, oh, we've got to do something now, or they're going to do it to us first.
It's also why I love War Games climax, where he goes all like, he's all like, don't you think that they know that you're going to fire your nukes? Well, yes. Like, then don't. Like, they know that you are willing to do it. That's all you need.
Right.
Like, so if you don't, then they won't.
Right.
And that's it. Like the part of Mad is that, hey, we've done it before, we'll do it again. Like, you know this. So you shouldn't do that.
The only way to win is not to play the game.
Again, and it's just, War Games is so good too. War Games is so good.
Good movie. It's a really good movie. Yeah. You're not wrong.
Like, I don't even care that it feels like there's like the climax just, the movie just ends and rolls credits. Like, the movie cuts off. Like, I've made my point, I'm out. Like, like that movie always makes me laugh because I feel like there should be another scene, like what do they call it?
Could have wrapped up.
What is it? A détente? Like an end? Like to wrap like things up?
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. I don't know if that's the word or not, but I know what you're saying. I've heard that description of it, but yeah.
Détente, the easing of hostility or strained relations, especially between countries, a serious effort at détente at the Eastern Bloc. Yeah, so like in the movie, it's the releasing of tension. Like, it's like that's where everything's released, and then like you have like a nice little breather to let it soak in. But this movie is just kind of like, would you like to play a game? Or how about a nice game of chess? And then like everyone's like, yay! And then like everyone's celebrating, and then credits roll. And it was just like,
it needed the
mod check.
It needed the scene that we got in this movie at the panel where it's like,
right,
you both are fuck ups. Like, you have fucked me. I am fucked now because of you guys. Fuck both of you. You get out of here. You go on a boat and get away from me. Like,
you retire. You need to learn your fucking lesson about like how things are done.
See, my reading of this too is that Hackman's character does request to retire and recommends Denzel for the captain role. That is my reading of that.
Right. No, I got that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
I really do feel like Hackman is actually truly glad that he picked this one time to stand up. Again, I could just be reading this myself.
No, but I agree with you after the EAM comes through.
But I think even as he's setting up for that, when he's telling him like, you don't fucking talk back to me, I think part of that is the setup for, you better make this worthwhile. There's going to be a time when you need to actually stand up to me in front of the men and actually make a fuss.
No, he said if you have a disagreement, you say it in private, and if privacy doesn't permit, bite your fucking tongue and just repeat my commands.
I know.
Like,
but my reading of that is that
I think that's where he does have that shift after he's proven wrong. That like, because again, the whole thing could have been, because like what launch depth, like even if they were fighting the other sub, launch depth was 150, communication depth was still 78. Like whatever the fuck your reasoning of whatever it was before the attack had left them completely crippled. So like they could have, in all honesty, as quickly as possible, risen to radio depth, gotten the message through. Because if they were going to go to 150 anyway, go a little bit higher, hit 78, get the message in. But that's not what Hackman wanted to do.
He's so pissed though about.
That's what I'm saying. He was so mad. He was. Well,
that definitely skewed his reasoning skills there.
There's
pissed about that.
I don't know what it is. But the way that Denzel Washington says, "Shoot the boat, float the buoy, float the buoy," like the way he says "buoy," like fucking like it just, I get like a weird like feeling. I don't know what to call it. Like when he just rolls off his tongue, and I'm just all like, "Ooh, like you said that really weird. Like it was weird." Float the buoy.
I assume that they had to have like worked together for a while to kind of build the rapport of being able to repeat their commands back and forth like that. Like that doesn't come naturally. You have to kind of work up towards that. And I wonder if that's just not how like sailors end up talking. They have kind of, I don't know, almost jingoey ways of saying some of their commands and whatnot.
It's all like, very well, float the buoy. Here the boat, float the buoy. Aye, sir, float the buoy.
As somebody who's umpired before, I definitely have like ways that I call balls and strikes and outs that are different from other people.
How do you call a strike?
I'm not going to yell in the mic right now.
Damn it! I wanted to hear you fucking.
But I don't do like a long like, no. It's just a quick strike. That's it. It's just a I'm not doing the kind of thing. Like, we're not doing like crazy like Power Ranger moves. Just a simple outlaw. You know what I mean? But like refs definitely do have different ways of doing that. So I imagine it's the same for military officers that they have their own cadence.
Strike.
Just saying. I'd always tell people before games what my calls sounded like so that there wouldn't be any confusion.
I mean, I think that's the thing you do with the coaches, right? Like this is how the call is going to sound. This is how you know what it is I'm calling and what it is I'm looking for.
This is what my foul signal looks like. This is what a ball looks like. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Again, I think that's one of the things that I think Tony Scott does really well, because there was a criticism of Top Gun about how unrealistic some of this stuff was, because like the whole thing with dogfighting, like especially modern dogfighting, especially like post 60s, these jets are super fast, and like with radar and tracking and heat seeking, you're not actually fighting 2 feet from the other goddamn person.
You can't get fucking canopy to canopy to take a photo. Not gonna happen.
Well, no, okay. If you want to be a showboat asshole, sure. But whenever they're in Top Gun and you have like the lead aircraft is the enemy, and then you have Iceman here, and then you have fucking they are doing fucking goddamn air show flying. Like this is not actual combat. You're not firing a machine gun from 3 feet away.
You're not firing a machine gun at all. You're firing a missile from 3 miles out before the other plane's ever even seen you, because you have a plane that costs $7 billion and they have a relic that's been left over from the Cold War. Like, that's what dogfighting is now.
No, the MiG-28 is faster and more maneuverable than the F-14 Tomcats, apparently, okay? Like, that was what recent intelligence.
But I know for a fucking fact they're not faster and more maneuverable than the F-22. So
that's today. We're talking about the 80s.
I know. I'm just saying, like, dogfighting isn't interesting anymore. Submarine fights aren't interesting anymore. They aren't.
But they haven't been because they're not real. That's the whole thing. A real submarine conflict would just be like, oh shit, everybody shut up, and then like they just float on by and they move.
I mean, there are plenty of really good submarine movies that don't require there to be an actual sub-to-sub fight. It's done a ton of them. Sub-to-sub fight feels like it's a cool thing, but it's just not going to happen. You ever fired a torpedo? They just go straight. Like, what? You fire where you think they're going to be in 2 minutes while they're watching you fire things at? Pretty hard to fucking hit a target like that. I don't know if you've ever tried. Easy.
It's a thing where that's what makes it the Top Gun sequel such an interesting prospect for me, because I feel like we have clearly gotten to a point where that can't fly anymore, unless they're gonna go back to the super unrealistic dogfighting again, and then it's like that's weird.
You know what they should do is just do a shot-for-shot remake of Behind Enemy Lines. Be like, this is the new Top Gun. We're taking it real and big pretty.
I mean, it would definitely help improve the terrible F-18 CGI they used during the surface-to-air missile scene, because it looks actually really bad. And then they have that weird editing thing. And it happens a couple of times in the movie. So now we're going to be talking about Behind Enemy Lines randomly. Sorry. Another Gene Hackman, brilliant fucking performance.
That's why.
That's the connection here. So...
Do you think Denzel could have played the Owen Wilson role?
I think so.
I think so. Not that I don't think
he would have been more... He would have been more... it would have been more dramatic.
Right.
Because like Owen Wilson comes off like his performance works because it's like he's clueless and he's dumb and he's like, I want to get out. Like it's
he's a jokester dropped into a terrible circumstances, then realizes it goes, fuck.
And he realizes I could be better, I can do better, I can be more. Yeah. And it's why I think, and again, we're gonna be jumping around. That's why I think Edge of Tomorrow does a really great job having Tom Cruise be that cocky dickhead at the beginning, and then it's the same thing. It's the same thing where he has that change where he's no longer like, but I'm the media guy.
Right.
Like it's like, oh,
it's a very literal interpretation of the hero's journey. The hero doesn't just return to where they once were, but literally returns to where they were.
Like literally
having changed for the better. Like, holy shit, taking that to an extreme.
Like you took that literally. You took that way more literally than we thought. No, but so yeah, in Behind Enemy Lines, like that's what Owen Wilson, like he wants out. He's like kind of, you know, full of shit or whatever. But like it works, but it does this weird editing thing. Like I don't know how recently you've seen it.
It's been a while.
So it happens in multiple scenes of the movie. The first time it happens is the plane scene. So it's like right before the surface air missile hits the plane, it does this and time stops, and then like change it, like, and then another angle, time stop, and it makes that kind of noise too, where it just stops, and then it's like someone goes and play, like someone paused it, the VCR hit play, and then like the action continues, and then shit falls apart. The plane gets exploded and falls apart, and that's where the initial crash happens. But it happens like a few times in the movie, and it's the weirdest editing choice because like I don't understand why it's happening. Like I just don't get it. Like what was the point?
Some really frenetic cutting. I'm watching a scene on YouTube now.
Is it the F-18 fight or
Yes.
F-18 crash?
Yes, it's the missile chase scene.
Is this Top Gun or Behind Enemy Lines?
Behind Enemy Lines.
Oh, okay.
I think that one was one of the first war movies I saw where there was such a horrible atrocity that actually took me aback and kind of makes you go, "Oh, maybe this war stuff isn't good."
Well, yeah, and I also like the fact that again, I wish it wasn't like as action packed in the finale, because I feel like that could have been good, because like, the entire end of it is they're just looking for a hard drive with pictures of what they saw. Like, and that could have ended in a much different way, but it had to end in a much more, you know, here's Gene Hackman piloting a helicopter as it fires a Gatling gun at the Russians, like, or whatever the fuck they were.
I do remember really loving when they dropped the fuel tanks and they just kind of bounce around on like a mini set, but it's very obviously a miniature set.
Right.
You can see
it was a good use of miniature.
Not bouncing, right? It's good, but like you could tell it's miniature when it pops in. Like the I don't know, the verisimilitude of the weightiness of things.
It's just funny whenever the explosions look like just a regular cheap plug-in. Like a cheap plug-in explosion. By the way, Fought, that video link, it's at 4 minutes in, that the thing that I'm talking about. Where it zooms in on Owen Wilson's eyes and stops. Goes in the other guy, turns, stops. The altimeter stops. Like, and then like it comes back, the music swells up, the SAM hits the thing, the fuel ignites, and the plane then explodes in half, and you're just like, what was the point of that editing choice? Like, and it does it a few times in the movie, and I'm like, this is the director doing it completely intentionally, and I just don't understand.
Maybe there's like a record scratch.
That's what I'm saying. At 4 minutes, do you see what I'm saying? That editing choice.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I got here.
Yeah, that's so weird.
That's very abrupt.
Like,
I forgot all about that. Oh no, it's obviously a choice. It is a choice.
Like, are they trying to say like this exact moment is like,
and this is where he knew he like fucked up.
I think it's meant to be like a time freezes and you just see that you can't do anything about it kind of deal, but like it doesn't play well.
It really, to me, does not.
Very odd.
Like,
it's the record scratch that gets me. If you just froze it, maybe had like a heartbeat track or something under it, cool.
Right. If you had zoomed in on his face and then like cut it out, and then like you heard like breathing, like, and then the heartbeat, ooh, and then like it cuts to again the pilot turning around slowly, and then like then the SAM. And then you speed it back up. Maybe it would be like, oh shit, a little like on the nose, but definitely not record scratch sound. And then like kick it up.
The show has just evolved to us making sound effects and going, this is what should have been.
Should have been boom boom.
Well, they went zip instead of zap, and that's a problem to me. Like, and here's how we correct that. You gotta go zap.
You should have zapped. You're gonna have a bad time.
You're gonna have a terrible time. But speaking of like some of the things in the sounds, I think that the sound of the metal plate when they're trying to fix the flood hitting that guy in the face. Oh, yeah, yeah. That was a bit gruesome, if I do say so myself. But yeah, no.
Yeah.
But Steve Zahn being the one that gets hit in the face though is a real like, hey, they clearly had no idea you were going to be an actor like at any point.
Again, Philippe I think all he did was like have a fish tank. I think that's his whole like character arc.
Ryan Philippe had a fish tank that he looked at.
In one scene he has a fish tank, and then another scene he covers the fish tank as they're going to war. So that's Ryan Philippe's whole arc.
Yes.
So
yes. Okay. Yes. That is literally it. And I don't know if I didn't recognize him, but maybe it's because like it was the accent. But Daniel von Bargen was Pachenko?
Really?
Yeah. And I think they might have made him up. But I was like, there's no way that's
I feel like I was supposed to know who was playing him, but I did not pick
right. I didn't picture fucking Grady. Like I recently saw Super Troopers and I was like, that's not Chief Grady. I'm like, I guess it is. What the fuck? That's so weird.
So look at stills from that now. I did not catch that at all.
Yeah, neither did I. But again, it's filled with so many stars that you're just like, holy crap. Like I don't know how they got away with it. I guess because it was 95, right? They just threw random people in there.
He is a Radchenko. That's terrifying. A real person. Ukrainian.
I think so. Of those people that got out, right, or were in that movie, Denzel obviously took off. Got really good. Viggo Mortensen definitely did really well.
Did okay.
James Gandolfini definitely did
okay.
Really well. Steve Zahn did okay.
Steve Zahn exists.
Like Danny Nucci at least went on to, play Fabrizio in Titanic, so he's Fabrizio.
That's true. He is Fabrizio.
He wants to complain about Silver Surfer, but he turned into Fabrizio, where he's an Italian, stereotype.
Same thing.
I'm going to America.
Matt Craven had a bit of a career.
Yeah. Let's see who else. Who else in this cast? Scott Grimes was in this. Scott Grimes. Okay, so I don't know. It just says that he's in it as petty officer. Something. It didn't tell me the full title of what his character was.
TV's Ricky Schroeder.
Yeah, but no one cares about Ricky Schroeder anymore.
No, fuck that guy.
Fuck that guy. But yeah.
Mark Christopher Lawrence is fairly big.
I just got that. It's clear to me that Seth MacFarlane really likes Scott Grimes. Like I don't know if he was a big Critters fan or something. But like, hey, here, be the voice of my son Steve in the show American Dad.
Right.
And then it's like, hey, I'm gonna do a Star Trek, but with comedy. You want to join my Star Trek, but with comedy? And he was like, yeah. And it's like, good for you, Scott Grimes. You get that paper. Good for you. Yeah, it's really crazy that you just have these people. What did some of these people ever end up doing? Like I'm kind of curious about I recognize his face, but I don't know any movies that like Rocky Carroll. Like was he's an NCIS, isn't he?
Yes.
Like that's where I reckon. Yes, he's Leon Vance. Yes. That's why I recognize his fucking face so much. Because he's on NCIS as like the director for like the fucking seasons after seasons.
Yeah, referring role for season 5, then main on 6 onward, and then also NCIS Los Angeles and New Orleans.
I mean, because you gotta have the director making director decisions for directing.
Yeah.
But that makes a lot of sense. So like James Gandolfini gets Sopranos, he got fucking NCIS, like Scott Grimes got got American Dad. Like there's a lot of people who got, you know, pretty good careers after this. Like that's good for them. Like you hate to see like a big movie end up being like some of their only things that they do.
Ryan Felipe did this, and then 2 years later does I Know What You Did Last Summer, and then 2 years after that is In Cruel Intentions. Like, and then just kind of not much. Fresh, I guess. The only other thing really.
Like
He
I'm
was
kind
a Lincoln Lawyer. I don't remember that.
like part of me really like, I mean, doesn't mind whenever like someone gets out of acting because they want to get out of acting. Like I think that's why part of the reason why I wanted to review Gene Hackman movies was like that picture came out and he's like, he's been retired for 17 years. He just wanted everyone to know that he's still doing well. And I'm like, I want to appreciate Gene Hackman as an actor because he has like a body of work that encompasses decades. It's something that like each decade has something different to bring to the table. Like the French Connection is like this gritty, like literally we're not shooting with permits, go fuck yourself, kind of like underground, like auteur, well, I'm the director, I'll do what I want kind of shooting. And then you have like Hackman is Lex Luthor and he's hamming it up like he doesn't give a shit.
That's what seems interesting, I guess.
And then the 90s, it was like, we're gonna put you in some military stuff. I think you'll do good there. And he's like, yeah, this does it for me. This does it for me. And then of course, the other movie I want to talk about is Enemy of the State. I don't know if we want to talk about that next week. I think that's an extremely relevant film. Like,
yeah, I've only ever seen that one once, and I was a child.
So
I know I've seen parts of it, but I've never like actually sat down and watched it.
It's another movie where you're like, here is an actor who you have the pedigree and the reputation of Gene Hackman coming into and Will Smith's not necessarily up and coming actor, but like he definitely hadn't done more serious roles. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if they try to get Denzel for it, but like it's one of those movies that you can see him with someone who probably hasn't done the same level of dramatic acting. Because Will Smith was, you know, Big Willie, you know, like haha, kid rap, you know, like word to your mother kind of thing, whatever. Like parents just don't understand.
Word to your mother. That's the exact quote.
Well, what parents just don't understand.
Yeah, it is.
And then his Fresh Prince, and like there's like some serious episodes in there, but overall it's very over the top slapstick sitcom.
Right. Well, Enemy of the State's 98, and
right,
you have Men in Black 96,
Men in Black,
and then Independence Day 96, Men in Black 97. So, you know, not exactly any major like dramatic roles to this point. Like just the episodes of Fresh Prince that you mentioned, which are admittedly very heavy, and he delivers them very well.
Yeah, he does. But you have a Will Smith who basically does like a science fiction / comedy, and then you have Independence Day, science fiction / you know, disaster movie. But even so, his parts are fairly comedic. Like the things with him. Like and again, it's a fair criticism to say like whenever they're in the briefing room in Independence Day, whenever they're like, you got anything to add, Captain Hiller? Like, no, I'm just going. I can't wait to get up there and kick ET's ass. And it's like, Los Angeles just got destroyed. You don't know if the person that you've been with, if your partner is dead or not. Like, there is no, let me get quippy with you.
Ha
ha.
Or crap.
Fairy lives don't matter. Okay, Will Smith. Yes, thank you, Will
Jesus
Smith.
Christ. Somebody wrote that was like, damn.
That was probably David Ayer. That was probably David Ayer.
Was. Guys, I got the perfect
quippy line. And if we have a black guy say it, it'll be great.
I hate to get off on our 47th tangent, but just look at the movies Will Smith did then. It was Bad Boys 95, Independence Day 96, Men in Black 97, Enemy of the State 98, and Wild Wild West 99.
He threw it all away.
Could have been The Matrix.
Could have been The Matrix.
Wild West instead.
Like, it's such an that's a run that you don't get a lot of.
No.
Like, boom, major hit, boom, major hit, boom, major hit. What the fuck is Wild Wild West?
Well, then he does Wild Wild West 2000, The Legend of Bagger Vance 2000, and then Ali 2001. So you're like, wait, I thought you were bad at this. What the fuck are you doing? Pick a lane, Will.
Pick a lane. Well, I mean, it is okay. So
either be bad in bad movies or be good in good movies. But you can't be both.
Post 95, I will say this: with the prevalence of home video, with the prevalence of like things like the DVD coming out, there wasn't the same kind of I do bad movies for the money, let me sweep it under the rug happening. Because like I was having a talk with a member of my Final Fantasy FC whom I wish to bring on this show to talk, because this person also has a great wealth of knowledge when it comes to movies, very opinionated, and like I appreciate the conversation that they bring to the table. But they were bringing it to me. They were kind of like, the thing with people like Nick Cage is a Nick Cage movie comes out, you don't know if it's going to be good or completely shit. And I was like,
There's no indication.
I was like, I think that's always been the case with almost every actor that's like a major actor that people try to get in. But it's just that now with the internet and more easy access to every film possible, we get to see that shit instead of it being like a straight to China, like straight to a foreign market rental place. Like now we get to see it too. Like we get to see those Bruce Willis movies that he's there for like 2 days max and then gets the fuck out. Like those Steven Seagal movies, the Nick Cage movies, where it's just like you take a paycheck to do some rapture movie because some Christians paid you a lot of money to do some propaganda.
Reboot of Left Behind. The reboot. We brought it back.
Like we didn't need a reboot of this movie.
We could do an entire podcast episode just on the Left Behind series. Ella and I both read those coming up because we're from the South. Yeah, you read shit just because it's like, okay, well, this is interesting. It's like a dystopian future kind of thing, but okay, my parents don't hate that I'm reading it. Nice. And then you realize that people take it seriously.
And you're like, oh no.
Like they wrote these things as fiction. There are people that believe this is going to happen verbatim. Like, you guys are real dumb. Really dumb.
But yeah, that's kind of the interesting thing that we get to see it now. Because I was talking to them about Pig. I was like, Pig is really good. Like it is it's amazing.
So you have no idea. Just by looking at it, I'm like, that could either be the best movie ever or the absolute worst thing that's ever existed.
And it's hard to tell because it's
no way to know.
Because one, it's a Nick Cage movie, and then like two, it's a low budget indie movie. But like overall, it is a great movie. Pig is one of those movies that like you see the commercial and you think, oh my god, is this just gonna be John Wick with a pig? And you're just like, oh no, where's my pig? Like that's kind of how it plays out in the commercial. But like you actually watch that movie and you're just like, oh, this is a dramatic movie about dealing with loss and how we deal with the trauma of loss, like dealing with loss and the trauma of loss, and like how we respond as people, how we respond to the people outwardly, inwardly. Like it's such a great movie, and it goes on this journey, and like it doesn't, like, I don't know, it's just a great movie that you have to sit all the way through, because like it's one of those makes you feel things kind of movie. Like it's not a again, like this movie makes you feel things, but it makes you feel like Criminal Time makes you feel things in a dramatic way. This makes you feel things in like a raw, like, but again, it is a movie about a pig. It is, but I think as as any pet owner will know, like you can sit there and be like, oh, it's just a movie about a dog, but like be a dog owner for like most of your life. Like there isn't just about a dog. There isn't that. Like there's a visceral connection. I think you get that with Nick Cage and this pig. You get that there's this connection, that sort of bond that is taken. And again, it's one of those things where you have to take it completely serious. You don't sit there and be like, look at him be with the pig. No. Like that's his pet. That's his friend. There's a loyal bond there. And like you see that in a trailer after seeing things like Willy's Wonderland. And you're like, I don't know if this movie's gonna be shit or not. I have no fucking clue. Like it could be.
I'm still not sure if Willy's Wonderland was a good movie. Like, I haven't figured it out yet.
To me, I think I loved it, but I loved it for the reason because it was just wild. Like clearly he read the script.
I don't know if it would have any kind of rewatchability, but that first watch was pretty entertaining.
It's a good watch with friends. Like you could tell that he read the script and had a lot of fun with it. Like you could tell he had fun.
I really miss that too. Like being in a room with several people who you actually like and get along with, watching a shit movie and just laughing your ass off about it. Like I like doing it online with you guys for sure, but like I miss that to a degree. I didn't realize I would miss stuff like that.
It's really nice. It's really nice.
A year and a half into a pandemic.
And that's when Willy's Wonderland comes out. The perfect movie to sit here and be like, what the fuck is happening on this screen?
What the fuck is this? Yeah.
He hasn't said a single goddamn word this entire movie.
Again, reminds me of Rubber. Like I remember watching Rubber in undergrad, just like blazed out of my mind. And
the Killer Tire movie?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But if you watch it with somebody who also appreciates the same amount of ridiculousness, you just sit there and giggle for 2 hours. Like it's incredible how experiences can be different just based off the people, even though the movie may be terrible.
Yeah, like, and again, that's what adds to it, because then the question can sometimes be, was the movie good or was the experience we had during the movie good?
I think that's the whole Marvel debate. I think that's why they're moving towards other forms of doing stuff. I think the Marvel movie thing was already kind of, hitting kind of its lifespan maybe, but like people often go to those movies just because they feel like they have to. Like, oh, well, I've seen the others and I don't want to miss stuff and not know what's going on, so we'll go see this one.
Which was my entire point of with them having these shows, which completely shift dynamics and completely like they shift the status quo into showing that like they kind of teased at the end of Endgame of that he would become Captain America, but now you realize like here's the transitionary period, so now okay, he is Captain America. And then you showed in Endgame Loki disappearing, and now you show the consequences of all of that. And you had again Vision die, and so you have the consequences of that happening. And then now you're gonna have the What If series, which they said that everything there is technically canon because it's all part of a universe, thanks to the multiverse, which is like, sure.
So a nice reason to be able to do some weird shit from comics and not have to justify it. Cool.
Right. And that's why I'm thinking like, so like you're right, where the status quo and thought process might be changing, where you can watch things and it doesn't have to be like, oh, you need to watch all of it to get there. It can be like a fresh start because this is not the same character. But you have
some people on
basis.
Some people on Twitter not understanding either. Like, what is this? How does this fit in? Like, it's just a what if. Like, this is not an unusual concept in comic books. If you have like any kind of canon to pull from, oftentimes you do what if comics, and they're really cool. I love what if comics. The What If Star Wars are my favorites.
I mean, DC has a different take on it called Elseworlds, which is the same thing, where it's like, we're going to tell an independent story using these characters unrelated to anything else.
Yeah, cool.
Like, we just want to tell this story. Like, we have a story that we would like to tell, and we're going to tell it. And, like, that's what I think people seem to forget, that, like, a lot of movies are just movies. Not everything is a fucking connected franchise. Like, it's okay if a thing doesn't become a franchise either. You can have a standalone movie. I told the story I wanted to tell. In, out, wham, bam. Thank you. Like, Crimson Tide is a perfect choice. Like, they could have been like, oh, we need more submarine movies or whatever the fuck, whatever nonsense bullshit they could have come up with. Like, oh, we need Crimson Tide 2. Now this time he's the captain. And it's like, and now we see what happens.
And what, Tom Holland's the EXO? Because that's just who you put if you need a young appearing person.
No,
we should do Crimson Tide 2, but it's all women.
No, it's oh my god. It's the all women sub. and we're gonna have it'd be all improv. We're gonna have 1,700 takes for every scene. Say whatever you want, and then we'll find the best cut of that. Mm-hmm. And then hopefully it'll make sense at the end of it, and not be. And if people don't think it is, they're sexist.
Right. That is how it works.
Like they are just sex. They don't get it. They hate women. And it's like, or the movie wasn't good, because the movies can just be not good. Like some of, you know what's weird, and I find it very strange. Again, tangent number 72. Like if they made a Crimson Tide with all women, I would be so like, okay, but that doesn't make sense. And you'd get that criticism, the backlash of like, you just hate women. Like no, like you know what one of my favorite movies is? Like every time I see like an all female led movie, I'm like, they've been doing that forever. Like, does no one remember The First Wives Club? Does no one remember that classic? Like, that's one of my favorite fucking movies. It's so funny. And it's again, just a woman-led movie about like, like them forming this club. It's just such a good movie. But I'm like, they do that show. Like, what do you, like, I always hate the fact that everyone goes back to Aliens or Alien and Aliens as the, like, oh, what do you mean female action stars? I'm like, it's only been Aliens and Terminator. Like you can't go back and be like, we had it 2 times already, guys. We're done. We don't need it anymore. Like, you just gotta make a good movie.
I'm really interested in the upcoming Netflix movie Kate. It stars Mary Elizabeth Winstead. Kate.
Oh, I heard Kate. I heard cake, and I was like,
yeah,
I would enjoy.
I heard cake. I'm like, ooh, I want cake.
I was like, how fat am I that you said Kate? And I was like, oh, did you say Kate? Is it red velvet?
I heard Kate.
Like what kind of?
But yeah, I'm interested in that. I like her as an action star. We were talking about Sky High the other day. Do y'all remember Sky High?
I never watched it.
Oh man, you should. Like, I think you should. I should go back and rewatch it. I remember it being a really interesting take on superhero stuff back before they started being super ubiquitous. But yeah.
I think that we've gone like way into 17,000 tangents, but that's our way. But Crimson Tide, really good movie. Let's hope for they don't decide to do an all-female remake, because like
if they do, Sigourney Weaver in the Hackman role, Regina King in the Denzel role.
And then randomly you have like Susan Sarandon be chief of the boat.
Yeah, sure. I like it. I'm down for it.
And then you have Melissa McCarthy like falling down somewhere.
Yeah, she's the chef, the
one that dies at the start.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh no!
I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, Gene Hackman says like, "You think I killed that man?" No, it was just 300 pounds. Like, could you imagine? Like, that's how Sigourney Weaver delivers that line. You think I killed her? No, that was her 300 pounds that killed her. It would be like, ooh. That reminds me of like a brand new comedy special by Phil Wang dropped on Netflix called Philly Wang Wang, and he was saying that decent is only a compliment for a guy. Like, he was a decent guy. He was a decent guy. But if you said that about a girl, it comes off really weird. She was decent, and it's like, well, what do you mean by that?
That's how I hope people talk about me.
They were decent. Like, It's like, yeah, I know. John was a decent guy. I wish I could have had a drink with him. Yeah, that sounds like he seems like a real decent. That sounds good. He's a decent guy. She was a decent girl. Did she not put any effort? Like I don't understand why. Why is she just decent?
It's decent.
But yeah, that's what I was like. Could you imagine anyone saying anything about anyone's weight like that?
Yeah, you'd have to agree with that.
Because again, it was again another moment when they were getting on the bus. Like, you think you'll fit on the sub? I thought that was kind of funny too. Like, and then he only gets like do 3 push-ups. I'm like, maybe he shouldn't be getting on the boat. Like, he's not fit to be
fair. I've been on a sub and they are very small.
They're very cramped.
The USS Drum down in Mobile, very tiny. I would bash my head on every single doorway. Every one of them would not be good.
Anyway, Crimson Tide, really good war movie. It's another one of those that complements movies such as War Games that deal with the nuclear threat and does so in a like taking that threat seriously. Like, it's not just
it's a movie that leaves you thinking about what you just watched. It's not like Top Gun where you're just like, oh man, that was a cool thing. You actually leave thinking, shit, what do you do in that scenario? Who is right? How do you navigate that? It's deep.
Well, the stakes in Top Gun are definitely different because like the reason why they're out there again in the climax is they're aiding and protecting a rescue, and they're trying to stop the Russians from getting within 100 miles because that's when they can fire a missile to take them out or take that ship rescue out. And it's kind of like, okay, so the stakes are only like stopping a rescue, where this is like nuclear holocaust, you know? And that's also the thing with War Games. It's that threat. Also the sum of all fears. Like, that's the thing where a nuke goes off. Like, that's the thing about the sum of all fears. I think is like that stands out is that a nuke actually detonates in a fucking stadium, in the Baltimore Ravens stadium for some reason.
I do love how often we see AFC North teams named Cincinnati get their fucking stadiums blown up.
It just happens. So the Baltimore Ravens shit gets blown up, and then it's like, so the tension then becomes, who fired this? Who set this off? Was it the Russians? Was it or was it someone else?
People
and so
look like the Russians,
right? And that's what the tension of the climax is Jack Ryan trying to figure out or trying to find out exactly who did it, and trying to prove that it wasn't the Russians, and trying to stop 2 uninvolved parties from, like, again, because the Americans were going to fire first, which would then cause the Russians to retaliate. And so, like, to stop that from all happening, that's the whole tension of the movie. That a nuke already went off, but now it's to stop more nukes. It's like, oh, okay. But the tension of the Holocaust is still there. Like, I don't know. I think the way that some movies deal with the threat and use of nuclear weapons is definitely more nuanced and more tension driven than others.
Correct.
And I think Crimson Tide falls into the ladder of good movies that do that, like, and handles it very, very well. And it has brilliant acting, amazing actors who.
Would you agree? Top 3 submarine films?
I mean, it's like you have Hunt for Red October, you have Crimson Tide, and then you have War Games with Kelsey Grammer.
Okay, those are the big
I mean,
not U571.
No, U571
the Widowmaker, not Dust Boot. None of that.
Nope. It's only because John Bon Jovi is in U571, so I don't give. I'm not gonna.
He is in U571.
I'm not gonna give him the credit that he thinks that he deserves to be a brilliant musician and then also an actor. Like, stay in your lane. I mean, I haven't seen it in forever. I just wanted to mention Kelsey Grammer War Games because, like, you said, oh, like War Games, and I'm like, Kelsey Grammer's War Games, like,
yes, Kelsey Grammer's.
Is that what it's called though?
I don't know.
Kelsey Grammer sub movie. Down Periscope.
Down Periscope.
It's called Down Periscope. There you go. That's the movie. That's one of the. So it's Crimson. It's Crimson Tide, Hunt for October, and Down Periscope. Those are the movies that you need to take into account for submarine movies.
Right. That's the big three. You heard it here first, folks.
But again, we've gone on long enough for an episode. Thanks everybody. I guess next week we can talk about Enemy of the State because it's very relevant to everything, and the fact that it came out in '98 is should be huge considering the revelations that came in the years to come.
I remember seeing that in the theater and thinking this is a little unrealistic.
Yeah, there's something about the NSA that just seems a little unrealistic that you have that capability. And then you're like, oh shit. All right, well, again, thanks everybody. With me as always, of course, Mort. Wait, this direction in the camera, this way, and then of course today, an unseen but not at all, not voiceless figure, Fought, is with us. And he gonna say something? No.
Hi.
All right, he did it. Thanks everybody. We'll catch you next week.
Beautiful contribution.
Be safe. Thank you.